Pete Alonso is an incredible offensive presence. But how many times can David Stearns use the word run prevention? They want to get better defensively. And I'm not saying you slam the door on re-signing Pete Alonso because you don't think he's a great first baseman. That's not the conversation. But I think there's going to be some kind of effort with the Mets that if they do bring back Pete, how do we balance DHing him, something I don't think he likes doing, and having a better glove at first base for maybe half the games, right? Because Pete plays every day, every single day. So somebody else playing first base half of the games is a colossal difference defensively for this team. And if the Mets can't find that plan, which includes common ground with Pete and a defensive replacement at first base, I like Josh Naylor a lot, Joe. I do. And this is a combo that I bet 90% of our listeners just turn off the pod because they don't want to hear a life without Pete Alonso on the Mets. But our job isn't to just say, hey, we want this to happen and we won't entertain anything else. I think our goal of this podcast, or at least has been, to try to present every different scenario possible for the Mets, which is, hint, hint, the job of a president of baseball operations or a GM for a team. And the argument for Naylor, if you have to have one, is one, he's younger, quite simply, a couple years younger, about 3.5 years younger. Two, he is way better defensively. He's basically a net neutral defensively. He's a zero in terms of like outs above average. Exactly a zero. He's got a better arm, which throwing for Pete became a real problem this year. Hopefully that's something he can correct in the offseason. But Pete being -9 and outs above average, that's a range problem with Pete. Pete is very good at scooping the baseball, but has very legitimate range issues. And that's something that you can't always see on the team, on the broadcast, because, you know, you might just be like, oh, that ball was hit hard and got by him, but other guys make the play on it. Naylor's a little bit of an upgrade there. I think Naylor is a better pure hitter at putting the ball in play, batting for average. I think he is a step down power-wise. Not even close, in my opinion. And it's a matter of that he'd be another left-handed bat where Pete's a right-handed bat and how you want to balance your lineup. So that's an early name for me, Joe, because I don't think there's a lot of solutions at first base, to be honest with you.
There really isn't. And Naylor's a good name, and we'll talk about the Japanese market a little bit in a little bit on this show. And Munetaka Murakami is a name that we will talk about that I think could be a potential solution. I think you make valid points, and David Stearns is hyping of run prevention. While I agree with it, and there are spots where I think they certainly can improve, my worry is that they sacrifice too much offense in favor of run prevention. I just don't want the pendulum to swing too far the other way. Alonso, as you said, throwing is a problem. Range, it's not ideal, and of course it's going to get worse as he ages. I think it really comes down to what the contract is. And I know on Baseball Night in New York, they did a segment, you know, yay or nay, and they brought up contracts. I believe Spotrac made projections. I don't see this one happening, but if Pete Alonso is getting 6 years and $177 million from someone else,
then. I'll tell you right
now. He won't be a Met, and you have to figure out another way to spend your money. I would totally agree with letting him go at that price. I just can't see how it possibly gets to that level when last year there was legitimately zero interest in the guy outside of kind of Toronto. So there'll be more interest this year. I agree with that, but not to the point where he's going to get this massive, long-term, huge money deal. But it is important, as you said, we have to consider other options, because whether it's Pete Alonso gets a longer contract than we expect, or what, another thing we don't consider, what if he is done with New York?
Right, it's fair.
I'm not saying he is or he isn't, but he could be over it here. Maybe he did not like how last year's contract went and he wants a new home. That's certainly possible.